Right. Okay, so welcome everybody who's here live and who is watching the replay. So my name is Tania Gonzalez Ortega, and this is the Transforming Relationship webinar. So I'm going to start by share my screen here. Oh, wow, that was easy. It worked seamlessly. Okay. So just a little bit about myself. Well, actually, let me go through what we're going to go over. So today, I'll share with you who I am. We'll talk about relationships as a transformational tool. We'll talk about free will and choice, the real secret about relationships, the 3 components of a relationship, 3 ways transformation happens in a relationship, and we'll talk a little bit about torn grids and what those are. So I am a mother of 2 children. I have a 19-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I've been married for 14 years. I am a crystal and consciousness technique teacher and healer, family constellations practitioner. I have a background in yoga, meditation, art, and Waldorf education. So obviously, relationships in general is about any kind of relationship, but this class we're going to look at more specifically at romantic relationships and partnerships specifically. But that being said, a lot of the information in this webinar can be applied to any relationship, whether it's mother-child, parent-child, friends, business partners, whatever. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so why, 2 people come together, obviously for many different reasons. And I'm sure there are more reasons than the ones that I'm listing here in this slide. And many are for the wrong reasons, but many are for the right. And so, people might be looking for an escape from their own discomfort or loneliness. They fall in love until they're not anymore and the relationship blows apart. Or maybe there's ulterior motives, like they're seeking financial security or even fame, or to please the family, right? Oftentimes there's unconscious patterns that draw people together. And I would say that probably most of us have a genuine desire for soul growth and growing closer to our true self. But that being said, even with that high aspiration, things come up, right? So relationships, oops, sorry, I'm trying to minimize my window here. So relationships are, in my opinion, the ultimate transformational tool. So they are an opportunity for you to learn actually more about yourself. And so when people come together in a relationship, there's unspoken and maybe unconscious agreements to mirror. So, oftentimes we replay traumas that need to be healed. That shows up in a relationship. Patterns, things like that. So when we're looking to our partner and they're behaving in a certain way that say that it triggers us, really what that partner is doing is mirroring back to us those things that we need to heal within ourselves, and vice versa. And really the problem that arises is that when we get triggered, we have a tendency, as you can see in this picture, to point the finger and be like, you're the problem, something's wrong with you, nothing's wrong with me, right? And so the things that can show up in relationships are these deep patterns, right? Past life karma and soul contracts those are things that I have seen in working with people, that whatever's showing up in this present life can be just unresolved karma from the past. And so it's showing up to be resolved here in the now. Inherited ancestral patterns. So those can be things like religious beliefs, just limiting beliefs in general, like, women can't wear the pants, or, any kind of thing like that. And those can get passed through our DNA, and also can be, they definitely live in our subconscious. Childhood traumas, of course, show up in relationship. These are probably the most prevalent. And negative geometric configurations. So these are, in CCT, these are crystallized energy patterns that get lodged into our energy body, and actually can get lodged in the relationship itself. And they can oftentimes shape shift, and they're here one moment, and then next thing you know, they're over here, or things that you think you've cleared, but then it pops up again. Like, they're really hard to get rid of. And in CCT, we can actually release those with the CCT energy healing tools. Assumptions, right? Assumptions about the other person and who they are shows up, and then you realize they're actually somebody else, or they're not who you thought they were. Projections, that happens a lot, projecting all of our own fears and anxieties and things like that onto the other person. And then limiting beliefs and subconscious patterns can show up. And again, I'm sure there are more things that I don't have listed, but that's just kind of at least something to start with. So, the question is, okay, who's the problem, me or you, right? If you are perceiving the other person as the one who has the problem, and they're the ones that need to change, then you just become disempowered and unable to transform, because you're sitting there going, they need to change. If they just change, I'll be happier, right? So you're really giving away a lot of power. It's a simple truth, but it's also very difficult to practice. It's really just about continuously stepping into your own energetic integrity and really taking self-responsibility. So when things come up, when triggers come up, conflicts, things like that, it's an invitation. Really, if you can choose to see it as an invitation for your own transformation, and not something to point blame at someone, then you're choosing then to be in a more empowered state, and actually begin the transformation process just by choosing to say yes to the invitation, to really stop and look at yourself. Okay, well, why am I being triggered? What do I need to change? So free will and choice, we live on a planet that's all about free will and choice, and so there's obviously challenges, right? So I have some examples here. If John offers Maria love, but John rejects it because he doesn't feel worthy or lovable, then Maria's love isn't received. Karen wants to travel more and be more spontaneous in the relationship, but Michael is perfectly happy with the way things are, and he loves to stay at home. And then, generally speaking, we go into a relationship with the intention to grow together. The challenges that always come with life doesn't mean that both will rise to the occasion equally. So, so the question is, okay, so if these are examples that come up, then it's like, okay, well then what's the way through, right? So wait, let me back up again. So, for example, in the first example, if John is offering Maria love and he's not receiving it. Did I word that wrong? If John offers Maria love, but John rejects it because he doesn't feel, well, I think I'm sorry, I messed up the names there, but you get the idea. Like if Maria's giving John love and he's rejecting it because he doesn't feel worthy, and then her love isn't received, it's like, okay, well then what's the way forward? I would say then it's an opportunity for Maria to look within herself to see, okay, where are there parts of her that don't feel worthy or lovable, and how can she step into more self-love? And then it gives John maybe the opportunity to see that and maybe shift and change. But of course, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So that's the challenge. So during a transformation phase, right? So in any of these examples, when you see that these things are coming up, like the example of the couple where the husband doesn't want to travel, but she does because he's happy at home, and right, there's so many things that could go wrong where it's like, okay, well, she tries to force him to come with her on the travel, and then he's like totally miserable. So you can see where the conflict can really feel stuck. And so in moments like that, it's really appropriate for each person to kind of disconnect from the other for a while and take time to go deep within to explore what is really going on. So obviously, you know, taking the time to really communicate that to your partner, to kind of have an agreement like, okay, like I'm really kind of going through some difficult stuff. I just need to kind of step back and really like go within, so I'm not projecting my stuff onto you, and maybe you can spend time to really do your own work, and let's see what happens, you know, after I take some time. So during a transformation phase, you might need more time for solitude, you may need time to do soul work, and you may need time to heal wounds and just face your own patterns. So, you know, obviously to show up as our best selves in a relationship, if we're not tending to ourselves and doing the transformation on ourselves that we need to be doing, then it just feels like, it's almost like you just kind of feel crippled in the relationship. It's like, okay, it's just not quite at its highest expression. So really saying yes to yourself and choosing to do the work and just taking some time. That being said, I did want to read, and maybe you guys are familiar with this, Khalil Gibran wrote a poem on marriage. And so I'm just going to read an excerpt from it because I think it really perfectly encapsulates what, even though he's talking about marriage, in my mind it also applies to just partnerships in general, two people that come together that are committed to each other. So, you know, he says, love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone, even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts and stand together, yet not too near to each other. For the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and cypress grow not in each other's shadow. So there's a lot of wisdom just in that one, those couple of stanzas that that really are what make relationship strong and thriving and beautiful. So the real secret is, if you're wanting to see a relationship change, you need to be the one to transform. So, for example, let's say your husband, and this is a very basic example. Obviously, in relationship, things can be a little bit more complicated than this example, but let's say your husband is totally disorganized, he's easily distracted and a total slob. So, and this triggers you, right? So instead of trying to manipulate or control him to get what you want out of him, ask yourself, Okay, where am I disorganized and easily distracted and messy? What can I do in my own life to become more organized, focused, and orderly? So let's say, you know, let's say if this is me and I'm being triggered and I decide, okay, I could either get really mad at him and I could, you know, berate him and get mad and just try to like make him change and do things differently and maybe even clean up his mess, which probably might just piss him off, so you can see where it just gets really messy. But if I stop and I say, okay, I'm being triggered by the mess, so where am I disorganized? Okay, what can I do? And I start taking action. I start organizing my life. I organize the things that belong to me. And he notices the change. He's like, wow, she's really organized. Wow, that looks really great. Wow, that feels really good. Maybe I want to be more organized and less of a slob, right? And so as you're changing, then it invites the other person to feel that change, because if everything is energy and suddenly you're like, you know, more vibrant in some way, it's going to inspire them to want to rise up to the occasion. Not always though, some people don't, right? But the thing is that, we don't want to be in codependent relationships, right? Or it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to up level and I'm going to be more connected with myself. Let's say let's say in the relationship, I wish things were more spontaneous, or that my husband would be more spontaneous. Well, instead of waiting for him to be more spontaneous, if I were to step into more spontaneity, and either that's going to inspire him or not, but if that spontaneity is feeling good to me and I'm being true to myself and I'm growing and I'm feeling great, and he's like choosing not to do that, then, either way, at least, you're staying in integrity with yourself. But more often than not, the partner is going to then decide to mirror that back. So obviously, just stay focused on you and be the one to take the first step. Don't wait for the other to choose transformation. You just keep focusing on yourself.
Is it okay if I ask a
Yeah,
question?
please interject
Okay.
anytime.
So I just want to bring up this is this is the issue that we're having in my marriage
Mhm.
at the moment. So we have this new place. There's no outbuilding, like we don't have any sheds to store all our garden equipment, and I don't know, we have just a need, like my husband needs a shop. So I am much the do it. It's like let's just buy one of those pre-made sheds. Let's just get something. And he's like, no, 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 because he's a builder and designer and he wants to build his own shed. In the meantime, nothing happens because he's got all these other things to do. So, and so I'm like, let's just buy it. He's like, no, I will not have a pre-built shed. And it's like, so it's kind of like, I would love to take the initiative and just buy a shed. But I don't know. It's like, so I'm not because I realize it'll piss him off. But in the meantime, I'm getting really annoyed because we have nothing.
Right.
So yeah, it's like, so should I go ahead and just buy a shed?
Right. Well, it's kind of like, I mean, obviously you have that. I mean, that's if it's your own finances, right?
Yeah,
And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna. One way you could frame it is like, I'm gonna buy this shed just for now,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
just for now,
Yeah,
and then once you get your shed built, we can turn around and sell it.
yeah,
Get rid of
that's what I was thinking too. And also we have need for more than one shed. It's like, okay, how about if I buy this shed and you can build the other one?
Right, because it might turn out that, yeah,
Yeah,
you might he might actually realize like, oh, wow, yeah, this is actually really was a good idea,
yeah,
you know. Um, and it could be something where it's just, uh, yeah, and so that, like, if you're presenting it in a way that's not saying like, I'm gonna get this shed because I know you're never gonna get it done.
right.
right?
Right.
It's not that, I mean, if that's in there, then it's just like, yeah, then it just feels like a
Right.
stab, right?
Yeah.
And you just present, I think I'm just going to do this. And if it doesn't work out, it's, or whatever, like, I know you can just keep supporting him. Like, I know you're going to build that shit. It's going to be great when
Hmm.
that happens. And just in the
Hmm.
meantime, I'm just going to use it. Like, you know, so it's not a shame or blame situation.
That, yes, that's important.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
Yeah. I totally can relate. um, so what can speed up and support the process? So obviously, applying CCT and family constellations work. So many of these conflicts and challenges can dissolve, and a new way of being and interacting can arise. Um, and CCT works on the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic, and crystalline levels of your being. Um, Family constellations can shift ancestral patterns and realign the energies within your constellation back to a place of love. Um, one thing, let's see, one thing that I wanted to share too as a tool for relationship, and this is something that was taught to me by my teacher, is if you can imagine that you have a clock, a dial, or a dial 1 through 10. Okay, 1 being like I'm really low energy, I'm dragging my butt around, to 10, I'm like almost mania, full of mania, like just like super energized and zoom, zoom, zoom. Um, you can tune in and you can ask yourself, okay, where am I on this clock or this meter? Let's say, okay, right now I'm a 5. And then you can tune into your partners and ask, okay, where are they at? They're at a 1, or they're at an 8, right? And so what you can do, obviously you can't change their dial, but you can change your own. So when you're interacting with them, having a conversation and whatnot, tune into the clock, and if they're higher or lower than you, then just adjust your dial, and the communication will be better received. Um, just a little, it's just a little tool. Okay, so the 3 components of a relationship, obviously, is a partner 1, partner 2, and the relationship, right? So each one of us, we're all unique. We all have a certain vibration. We carry certain frequencies, right, within our being, of who we are on all levels, right? And when 2 people come together, obviously there's almost like there's chemistry, right? When people say, oh, I have chemistry, or I don't have chemistry. When those 2 energies come together, then it forms this third, it's almost like an entity, right? It has a certain quality. So, and you can experience that a lot, right? Just in social situations, like going to a party by yourself and enjoying the party, and then going to the party with your partner, right? It's, people interact with you maybe differently. So our relationships, some relationships are still at a soul task level. 2 people come together because they have certain soul tasks that they need to accomplish, and that could be, raising children, paying the bills, like whatever, just task oriented. Then as the tasks become completed, then there's an opportunity for the relationship to move into a soul purpose relationship, so that the 2 people coming together actually have something special that they're here to give to the planet. Um, okay, so one thing that I have done with clients is that if a couple is wanting to know, okay, well, what's my soul purpose? You each have a purpose individually, and then there's a purpose also for the relationship. And so with family constellation work, you can tune into each partner's purpose, and then you can also look at, okay, well, what's the relationship? And so in family constellation work, Lindsay, I know you've experienced this, but you set up the fields, right? You have a field for the self, a field for the partner, and a field for the relationship. And then you can see with the family constellation work, you can see what is blocking the flow of love in the relationship, which obviously can come from many different things, as I said earlier on, ancestral patterns, childhood traumas, past life karma, stuff like that. And then it gets further supported with the CCT soul chart work and intention. So there's 3 different ways transformation happens in a relationship. So 1, I choose to transform. And I arrive to a new level of awareness of being, and this in turn affects the relationship, but then invites the partner to transform. So that can happen. Secondly, flip it around. My partner transforms, thereby changing the nature of the relationship, which then invites me to transform. Or thirdly, something outside the relationship happens, which then triggers transformation in each individual in a unique way as a response to the external event. So I wanted to share my own personal story with that. So my husband and I own a dairy together, goat dairy, but it's my husband's dream. And so he had been building a goat herd, and we bought Sunny Pine Farm. And so when we first started the business, at that time, just previously, I was doing childcare. I was raising my son, and I was taking care of other children using my gifts to support this transition, right? Because he was going through a transformation. He was like, I am sick of building houses. His dream has always been to farm, and it was like, okay, so I'm going to be the supportive one while he goes through this transformation. And so he did that, and then so he landed in the dairy, right? He's running the dairy, and during that time, I chose to use my gifts to support the business. And that was fine for a time. And what ended up happening after about 5 years, I suddenly felt really lost and really disconnected from myself. And I realized at that point, it was like, okay, I've been supporting his vision, and he's loving it. But I was like so disconnected that I realized, okay, wait a minute. Now, he's done the transformation. He's doing all the things that he wants to do with his life, right? But what about me? And so it was a mirror back to me that, okay, Tania, like, what about you? What do you want to do? So, and so that's when I chose to step away from the business completely, and I went back to working with children, and also pursuing energy healing and teaching people about CCT and family constellations work. And so now I'm going through the transformation process, and he's being the one to hold the container for me, right? So that's an example of how that transformation can happen. With the last example, when something outside of the relationship happens, which triggers transformation, COVID is a perfect example, right? The pandemic, something external was really huge, and that either brought families closer together or it blew families apart, right? I saw both sides of that coin. So that's also an example. Okay. So I transform, you transform, and vice versa. So again, this is going to kind of reiterate what I just said, but if one person is undergoing transformation while the other is holding the container to allow for growth for the other person, so they act as the stabilizer in order to help minimize the chaos. So, we see this a lot, like people decide that they're going to go back and get their master's degree in something, right? And they got to be full-time student. Well, the person that's got the job and the income and so forth is like, okay, I'll take care of all the bills and all of this so that you can go for that thing and go for what it is that you want to create with your life. And so that's one way that works. And so once the transformation is complete, let's say the person goes out and they get their master's degree, and then now they're a full-time therapist, and the other person has an opportunity then to enter a transformation cycle. So it kind of can go like this, right? One person's turn, then the other person's turn. One person's turn, then the other person's turn. And of course, there's always the risk that someone will not want to transform and therefore leave the relationship. And I think where people get stuck with that, it's really, it's kind of the hard truth, right? Where, okay, I want to transform, and I go through the transformation, and the other person doesn't want to transform. Then you're kind of faced with, okay, well, do I stay in this relationship or do I go? It's a tough one, but hopefully if a relationship actually does come to that point in CCT, the soul charts can actually help to just bring right closure, so that it's not an ugly blow apart kind of breakup, but rather okay, we're just going to bring right closure, bless each other, and move on, right? So we can move away from relationships that maybe are not really serving either of us, with receiving support from CCT, so that's done with like grace and ease. All right, so torn grids are basically what happens at a deep energetic and structural level of a relationship, which can be an extreme trauma or catastrophic event. So for example, loss of a child, bankruptcy, natural disaster, terminal illness, etc. Torn grids are the most difficult to heal and transform. Relationships can heal in these situations, but it's not super common, unfortunately. Most relationship containers cannot handle such blows, and so both individuals, when those traumas happen, are so steeped in their own rage, overwhelm, grief, or denial. So I saw this happen with a good friend of mine who they got slammed with so many things. First, it was the fires. Their home burned up completely, and this home was like a labor of love. I mean, they were building it by hand, and it was like, it wasn't a cookie cutter home. It was very artistic, and they were spending years to build it. And the fires came through, burned up the house. They didn't have insurance. So that was the first trauma. Then, take a drink of water. Then, as time went on, maybe a year or two later, the woman in the relationship was ready to have another baby and went to get her, just an overall checkup with her gynecologist, and just went through a basic routine, I don't know what you call those, like health wellness checkup, right? And the doctor found, she's like, well, that thing on your breast doesn't look too good. I think you need to get it checked out. And it turned out that she had breast cancer. And so it was 2 blows. Couldn't have another baby, and now she had to have a double mastectomy. And it was just too much. Both of them were in so much grief and overwhelm and stress that they just could not move beyond the trauma, and so they split apart. That being said, though, like I know of a friend who had 2 children, and one of them came down with like some really rare, horrible disease, and she ended up dying at like age 7. And for some couples, that's so traumatic that they just can't, can't handle it. But in that situation, what I observed is it actually strengthened their marriage, strengthened their commitment to each other, strengthened their relationship to God, and just they just, if anything, it just deepened their connection with each other. So it's kind of two extremes when it comes to traumatic events. It's like either it can really strengthen the relationship and bring about amazing transformation, or it can blow it apart. Is there any questions so far that you guys have? So we're going to dive into just an energy healing session now. And so now's your opportunity to choose a powerful intention that you want to work with. So if you're in a relationship, you can choose an intention for what you want to experience in your relationship. If you're single and you're ready to be in relationship, then I would focus on either what it is that you want to experience in your next relationship, or specifically state the things that you're wanting to heal first before you embark on that new relationship. So obviously make sure it's clearly worded, stay open and relaxed, let CCT do the work, and then notice what shifts and changes over the next several days. So let's see what time it is.
We're not really knowing an intention, or maybe not having the clear, specific wording.
Can you say that again, Kristen? You kind of broke up a little bit.
What if we don't have a clear intention or like the specific wording? Like, I guess it could be more generic, like just to heal whatever has been before.
Yeah, you can make it really, sometimes the most general intentions are really powerful. So you could say something like, okay, I want to heal whatever I'm still carrying from past relationships, for example.
Yeah.
Or I want to release any patterns that come up in relationship that no longer serve me. Right? So that way it's like, that it's open, but at the same time it's not like you have to know exactly what it is that you need to release. But obviously, like, some of these things live in the subconscious, and we have no idea why maybe certain patterns keep repeating themselves. But if you can state it that way. So it's more open-ended, and that's really actually great, because then it gives more room for CCT to do the work for you.
Thanks.
So I'm going to start by setting up your fields. So I ask to place the vibration of opening in your individual crystal and energy field and our crystal and group field. I ask to place the healing chambers in the appropriate order for this CCT session in your individual crystal and energy field and our crystal and group field. I ask to place the vibration of your own intentions in your individual crystal and energy field and our crystal and group field. And I ask to place the vibration of the 23 crystal vibrations, 11 universal needs, and mastery in your individual crystal and energy field and our crystal and group field. And I ask that you connect to the crystalline grids of the planet, and that you connect to and through the crystalline energy field. So go ahead and place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly button. I invoke opening. And now move your hands down, one above the belly button and the other hand below. And now move your hands back up, one on your heart, one on your belly button. I invoke a creation healing chamber. And now move your hands down, one above the belly button and the other one below. And now move your hands back up, one on your heart, one on your belly button. I ask to anchor on the following intention as stated, each individual's intention. So go ahead and state your intentions. And now take your hands and place both hands over the belly button, one on top of the other. I invoke mastery. As it is intended in the new earth energies, so it is. Okay, so again, notice what shifts and changes after today. If there's chaos, just let it ride through, it'll clear. Yeah, take care of your body and drink lots of water. Tomorrow, just to give you a quick peek at what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about 3 phases of transformation in relationship and transformation patterns, which is super fun to talk about, and talk about the challenges with each one, and transformational communication. And then we'll close with another energy healing meditation. Okay. Thank you for joining. Any questions? Comments?
Coming up with the intent, it was like suddenly, because I guess I was thinking to try to intend what I want to create rather than releasing blocks. And I wonder, I don't know, do you have anything to say about,
Yeah, what's the difference?
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of like 2 sides of the same coin in some ways. But if you look at it, if, let's say, you have an intention to want to create something, then whatever doesn't fit with that intention is gonna fall away, or it's gonna come up to be released and transformed, right? That being said, if you're gonna be focusing on I'm gonna just release this stuff, then the experience might just be more of like, okay, those things are gonna get released, all the junk lifted up and out, and then you'll find yourself in a space where almost like a blank slate feeling, like, oh, now I have just a blank canvas. Now I can think about, okay, well, what do I want to create? So sometimes for people, if they're not really sure what it is that they want, just releasing the stuff can just help bring some clarity, as far as like to be able to really then connect to themselves and move beyond the stuff. So that's how I look at it in terms of, okay, what do I do? Do I just want to intend something positive that I want to experience and create, make or say? Or do I just want to release something?
So it's interesting. So then, if you do just say, okay, I want to create this, but if there are these things that are blocking it that need to be really, like, be prepared that it may not just happen like that, you will do some releasing on the way to that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, I know that I can't really move forward in making new relationships because I have a bunch of attachments or still a lot of feelings about how the other relationship I just ended, you know, was unresolved. And so I'd love to clean that up and feel really clean and clear about that before I move forward, because there's a lot of pain still there.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, you're really kind of honoring your own process, because it's like, okay, I know at some point I wanna be in a relationship, but like not right now, right? Like,
Well, I'd be carrying the same junk into it because I haven't done the
right.
cleaning.
Yeah, it's almost like more of like, okay, let me just clear out my own stuff and really feel clear and confident and ready within myself. And then I can call in the relationship, right? Okay, now I'm ready, right? Now I've gained the wisdom and the transformation from the last relationship, and I've carried it through to mastery, where it's like, okay, I received the gift of whatever that was, what it brought up for me, what I needed to heal, right? Um, so it's kind of just really honoring where you're at, and how you want to move about it, because really, you are in charge. That's kind of why I love CCT. It's kind of like it's up to you how you want to call it. But yeah, that's a really, I'm glad you asked that question, Lindsay. Really good one. All right, ladies, and whoever's watching the replay, thanks for joining. And we'll go live again tomorrow at 11.
Hey, thank you so
Right.
much.
Bye. Enjoy
Bye.
the rest of your day.
Everyone.